So, hello, everybody. Welcome to another indie author interview. I am here with Hillary Raymer, who is the author of Chaos and Constellations, as well as the Faeven Saga, correct?
Yes, that's right.
All right. I haven't read that one yet, but I'm going to be reading that one next. So thank you so much, Hillary, for taking the time to, talk with me today.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's just get right into it. So tell me a little bit about your author journey. Like, when did you decide you wanted to be an author and what your path to publication was?
Okay, so buckle up. No, no, it's not that bad. So I've been writing. I wrote like in elementary school and middle school. I was always writing, like short stories or poems. And in high school, I took all the creative writing classes. And then like I got to college, and like for some reason I was like, I'm going to be a music major. I'm going to teach, choir. Um, It didn't pan out. I think I switched my major like 8 times before I finally settled on like, "Oh, yeah, English. I love writing. I can totally teach high school English." Um, and I was going to, that was my plan. And then I met a Marine and on break, and I just never went back to school. So that was that. But so it was a little bit tricky. I had been like, querying agents for like years. And I I like my very first like book that I wrote was actually like a Regency romance. It will never
Oh.
see the light of day. But that is hard. It's very hard to do. So props to all the Regency romance authors out there. Which is probably why I took some of those Bridgerton vibes, because I loved the world and then made them into fantasy because that's more like my jam. Um, but it had gotten to the point for a while where I had gotten, I would get like they have this thing called like the slush pile, right? Where you query like agents, and it's like where all the queries go. And my story got pulled a couple times, and like some agents were like, "Yeah, send me the whole thing," and so I would. And then eventually, after like 3 months, it would always be like something small, like, "Well, this isn't for me," or whatever. And it just got to the point where I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm just like not cut out to write fantasy. Um, so then I switched to contemporary romance because write what you know. And so I wrote contemporary romances. I wrote two that are published, but I've like kind of like kept them like hidden. Don't look for them. um, but they had like, like former Marines in them and stuff like that. But it got to the point where it was like I was having to ask like my husband and my brothers who are also prime Marines, I was having to ask them like hard questions, and they were really like gut wrenching stories, almost like Nicholas Sparks type vibes, but with like a kind of happy ending. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. Um, but I had actually stopped writing fantasy for like 3 years because I didn't think I was any good at it. And so I one day I was like, let me just pull it up on my phone and like just reread it, like just to see if it's like really that bad. And it wasn't. And I got so mad at myself for quitting. I had to like put my phone down and like walk away. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. And so I wrote, it took me about 10 years total to write Crown of Roses, which is the first book of the Faeven saga. And that was just back and forth between like, kids and deployments and all the stuff and editing and everything. And I published it in October of 2022. I created my own LLC, did all the back office stuff, and then it just kind of went from there. And then I actually just signed with an agent like earlier this year. So progress.
Yeah, and I think that your story is similar to, a lot of, indies who really didn't, I mean, it really kind of wasn't like a big thing, until
Yeah.
maybe a few years ago. So kind of going through that querying process, that must just feel like you said, just very defeating and feel like it's not good enough. I'm not good enough and make you want to quit.
100%. Like it was, I think I just got so tired of trying to find someone that would like believe in me, um, or tell me that my stuff was good enough. So I just did it myself.
Mm. And so when you write, you said it took you 10 years to write your first book.
Yeah.
How do you outline? Do you outline? Do you pants? Do you plot? Do you quilt? What do you do?
I am not a pantser. um, so it's tricky for me. Usually I start with like an idea or a character, whichever comes first. And then I'll kind of go from there. And I try to figure out, I'll go through like if there's like certain scenes that I know I want to include that like I have like visions of, right? I'm like, okay, I want to do this one, I want to do this one. And then I'll kind of think about like, okay, well, how can I get the characters to this scene? Like what has to happen to get them to this point? Um, and then I'll sometimes if I'm like stuck, I'll play like 20 questions with myself where
Mm.
it's like, what if this happens? What if this happens? And I'll go and it's nothing is off the table. Like everything, like anything that pops into my mind, I write it down as like a possibility. And then that kind of helps like in terms of like, plotting out the overall um plot of the book. I don't have like every detail plotted or outlined. Sometimes it's more like just like a general vagueness of like, I know that this is going to happen. But what I will do is I write all of my books by hand
Oh.
first. Not all at once, but like the first, like just a couple, like maybe like 3 to 4 scenes or chapters at a time, I'll outline by hand. And um, I'll include like, the who, what, when, where, why, the dialogue, very, very basic descriptions. But I find that that's easier for me because then when I sit down at the computer to write, um, I already know what I want to say, and I'm not just sitting there staring at a blank screen, like waiting for like magic to happen. So, like right here, this is Drake and Cresslin's book that I'm like
Oh, wow.
working on. So yeah, so I know sometimes people give me like the side eye when I say I write them by hand, but like, I do.
I think that's
It's
cool.
just it's easier for me. It's better for my creativity. And I don't feel like I'm like stuck in like a rut. And just because I only do like just a couple chapters at a time, it makes it easier when I'm actually typing if like the characters decide to like, veer off course, then I can like flow with it a little bit better. So
I actually just saw something on TikTok today. There's an author, and I don't know what her name is that I have it saved. But she said that like she has like a bunch of notebooks like for every one of her books. And so she created this journal, and it's like an author journal, and it kind of has like prompts and things like that in there. And she's like, then when you're at the end, like you have a whole journal of like your journey to like get, to the final book. So I think that's a cool idea.
that's really cool. Yeah, I definitely have I have like 8 to 10 notebooks that are like stacked away off camera, just filled with all the things. So
And so what do you enjoy most about writing fantasy?
um my favorite thing, probably my favorite thing about writing fantasy is like the world building. I just like to come up with like new ideas, or like fresher takes on like old ideas, or just like I don't know. I've fantasy is just it's like the sky's the limit. So in terms of like what you can create in a world, which I love. So,
You have to be so creative to be able to do that. Like, writing a whole fantasy world. So even, like, when you have like both worlds because our world, but then, you don't know the fantasy world. So like that's maybe a little bit easier, but creating your whole world and having all those things must be like difficult, because you kind of have to like remember like what you wrote and like make sure it's streamlined,
yeah,
right?
it's it's a lot to remember. So horrible funny story. With the Faven saga, I didn't like a lot of times authors have what's called like a world bible or like a story bible
Mhm.
where they have like all of their world building details, all of their characters and stuff like that. And I didn't make one of those. So like literally everything was just like in my head.
Mhm.
Um, do not recommend at all. So I've been trying to get like a lot better with like all the chaos of constellations and like writing things down as I go. But so I don't forget later. But it is a lot to keep track of. I kind of want I'm like I just need to like create my own like Wikipedia or something like a bookish like wiki to like keep track of like all the things so I can click on a page and it'll take me to that character and all their stuff and make everything like connect. So that would be ideal.
That would be pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. And so when you're writing, what do you need in your space to stay focused? What helps you stay on task?
So I don't really have like any kind of like method or like I don't like candles. As cool as that sounds, I forget. I have them, I just don't like them. I don't it doesn't have to be like a particular time of day. It's more like just I like sit down, all right, it's time to to write. Honestly, the only thing I probably do pretty regularly is listen to music. So
And so music with words, without words, both?
oh, without 100%. I if I'm listening to so sometimes I'll listen to music with words if I'm just thinking or like outlining in like my notebooks and stuff. But when I'm actually typing, if I also, especially if I know the song, I'll start to type what I'm hearing
Yeah,
instead of like, so it's a whole mess. Yeah. So I don't, I can't listen to music with words when I'm actually like writing.
that's what I do. So I relate to that. And what's your kryptonite as a writer? What kind of gets in your way?
Battle scenes, like
Mm.
battle scenes are so hard to write. Um, that and like, of imposter syndrome, but we're not going to talk about that. But the battle scenes, I feel like they just take me so long because there's so many moving parts and there's you have to make sure it's like you have to like see in your head where everyone is and make all the fit all the pieces into the puzzle, and it's just stresses me out.
Well,
So
battling with, weapons and things like that probably is not something that you do every day. So that would make sense.
it's not.
And I know I keep mentioning TikTok, but I mean, that's where I started. That's where I discovered indie authors, and that's why
Yeah.
I do this. There's I don't think she's an author. I think she's just like a reader, and I guess she like has like martial arts like training and something like that. So like she actually like makes videos for authors about like this is how you would do this sort of fight scene, and this is how you would do this one, and like she'll show it so that like it's accurate to like what it would look like.
Okay. I need
Um,
to go find her
yeah,
because I just
I'll have to look her up and send it to you because I definitely know that I favorited it or reposted it. So I'll have
okay,
to,
yeah, that would be wonderful because battle scenes were like the bane of my existence.
yeah. And usually this is the part of the interview where I hold up your book and I say, "This is the book," but I just ordered your book the other day. So do you have a copy? There you
This
go.
is the book.
So this is the book that I read. So this is the one that I would like to talk about. But obviously you can talk about the Faven Saga as much as you like. Void of
Sure.
Endings is coming out or did come out.
Did come out, yeah. So I'm like a little bit of an overachiever. And I released Void of Endings the week before all the Chaos of Constellations.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
that's
Also don't recommend.
because you have to focus on marketing both books at the same time then.
Mhm. Yeah. It was a lot.
So, so if we're going to talk about all the chaos and constellations, if you had to describe that book in one sentence, what would that sentence be?
So all the Chaos of Constellations is um like it's like a swoony, whimsical world with like Bridgerton vibes, but with magic and fae
I love
is
that.
how I would describe it.
And like I said, this was my first book by you, and I was just like blown away. I was like, why have I not like read? Because I've had the Faven Saga like on my list for a while, but then I saw this one coming out, and I'm like, oh, like there's only one. Like it's okay if I can always try the other one if this one's not my thing. But I was just like blown away. So that was really
Thank
really
you.
wonderful. And
I'm
so
glad you liked it.
yeah, I mean, and I think that that's also like my favorite part of doing these interviews is that like I'm choosing authors that I really, really like, and I hate star rating systems, but it's generally like if I give a book 4 or 5 stars, that's when I'm going to want to talk to the author, like, and reach out and really, really focus on, promoting that author. So, obviously your book fit into that category. So that's wonderful.
I'm
Um,
so glad to hear it.
and so if you had to pick a character, and it can be from any of your books, that was your favorite to write, who was that and why? I know I'm asking you to pick one of your children.
Good question. Yeah. So I would say my favorite one to write so far. has probably been Maeve from the Faeven Saga. She just had um, so much growth, and she went through so much. Um, and I love writing her. I love writing her.
What about her do you think just makes you like enjoy writing her so much?
She she is like, let's say the person, but she's a fae. But whatever. She is like the person like I wish I could be. She is she's a total badass. She knows she can fight. She knows how to fight. um she doesn't put up with any crap. She's just very she's strong and she's stubborn, and she speaks her mind, and I love her.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
What was the most challenging part of maybe writing this book that, that we're discussing? Because obviously it is different than, your other series. And so
Yes.
what was challenging about that?
I would say most challenging um, for Constellations was probably like it was just a whole. It's like a completely different vibe. It's very light and kind of like airy, and I just want like whimsical is honestly the only word I can describe it. So it was tricky to like separate those two worlds because I wrote all the chaos of constellations um after Realm of Nightmares, which is the third book in Faven, and before Void of Endings. I just needed like a break because that is just it's just a lot grittier and a lot darker, and I just needed like fresh and happy. And I say that now, but like I'm working on like the second book in the Starstorm series, and it's probably going to be it's getting a little bit edgier in terms of things. So yeah, but that was the hardest part, was trying to just like I really wanted people to feel like they were not necessarily reading like a Regency historical romance, but just with those same kind of like like swoony, like toe curling melty type vibes, like just an easy comfort read is what I wanted for Constellations.
For sure. I think that's actually a really good way to describe it, a comfort read. Like that's how I felt about it. I like that. And in this book, do you have a favorite line or a favorite scene?
Yeah. So my favorite line is when Asher says, "Do not compare her to sunshine and rainbows when she is so clearly moonlight and stardust." I actually had it made into like a shirt that I wear.
That's a really great quote. That's
Yeah.
Do you ever kind of like have to sit back sometimes and be like, wow, like that came out of my brain. Like I wrote that. That
Sometimes,
just
yes. I think
like
so. Yeah, so I don't think about it myself very often, but like when I come across like readers or bookstagrammers or whoever, and they've like highlighted it, or it's like on their or they're like talking about it, then it's like, oh, I did that. Which is like a really cool feeling.
cool. And so sometimes when we write books, obviously we imagine our characters. You were talking about imagining where they are in a scene and things like that, but that would also involve probably figuring out what they look like. So, would you fan cast your main characters as anybody? Do you have anybody in mind that they look like?
Um, so I feel like I'm kind of like the oddball author here when it comes to that kind of thing. Um, I make up their descriptions as I go. I don't really ever have like a certain like person or character or whatever in mind. But in terms of like if I had to like cast them in a movie, I did read through the questions, so I was prepared. I would probably choose Lily James for Novelise, and then Richard Madden for Asher. And yes, I know that they were both in like the live action Cinderella together, but that's why I think it's just so perfect.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's how I would choose
And all
for
of
sure.
all of the art that you commissioned that you've been posting is absolutely stunning. Like so beautiful. And, you have a special edition coming out of all the chaos and constellations, right? And I
Yes, from the book Cove.
wow, like that is so beautiful.
Thank you. I'm very excited. I was really flattered and super honored when when they chose me to be their first book for their new book box, or special edition, whatever we want to call it. But it's very, very pretty, and it's gonna have gorgeous edges, and it's gonna have like holographic foiling, and there's like colored end papers. And I know the first 300 copies received the vellum overlay of the artwork. Those are all gone, but the ones that don't get the vellum will get that as an art print in the with the book. So
Oh. And so how do like special editions like for book box and stuff work? Like do they just like reach out to you and say we want to do this? Like and they like coordinate like the design and things like that? Like what goes into that?
yeah, so usually they'll reach out, or a lot of times, a lot of like when the book club was first starting out, they had kind of like a like an open submissions. So I was just like, hey, this is my book. What do you think? And so she requested it. So I sent her the whole thing to read to see if it would be like a good fit for their brand. And she loved it. And we haven't done we don't have a contract yet, but she wants to do the entire series,
Oh
which
wow.
is really amazing. But yeah, but she Renee takes care of everything. I send her a PDF of the book. She does new formatting, new cover design. She takes care of all the art, uh, all the marketing. She might ask me like once or twice, like, "Hey, would you mind sharing this?" And I'm like, "Sure." But I know like it's just all she does all of it.
Cool.
So
I mean, that must take a lot off of your plate, obviously, but you know, cool.
yeah, it's nice when all I have to do is hit like accept collaboration on Instagram.
But I mean, there's so many. I don't think I have too many special editions. I think this is the only one from a book box that I have, which is Rise of the Cinder Fae by Whitney Dean. I think that's the only one I have.
I love that book. I read the arc of that book and I devoured it in like a day
Me
and a
too.
half.
I loved it. And I mean, her other series is great too.
Yeah.
But um, we'll go into kind of the last part of the interview here, which is just fun questions, things that,
Okay.
I would want to know if I were being asked. So, other than reading and writing, what are some things that you enjoy doing in your life?
Um, I like to I like to be outside. So I like to go to like the beach or the mountains, and I like to garden, but like with flowers, not fruit or vegetables. I know my limits. No. And I like to I really like to sing karaoke, which is fun. Like going back to the whole like music major thing from like once upon a time. But what I also do, sometimes like especially if I feel like I'm kind of getting into like a rut with writing, I try to find other ways to be creative. So I've got a friend who's going to teach me how to macrame
Cool.
soon. Yeah, we're gonna work on like I think like a little like hanging plant holder thing, which will be fun. And I also work with resin, which is really fun. I like to do that. I make like resin daggers. And I think I'm gonna start doing some jewelry for my shop, or maybe for like some upcoming events or something like that. I haven't decided.
That'll be
But yeah,
awesome.
it's just a nice little like break, because then I'm like working on things and my hands are still busy, but like my mind kind of like clears a little bit, and I can like maybe like subconsciously I'll think of things. So
That would be awesome. I like the resin dagger. That's really cool. Like, how do they like sell like molds for that? Or do you like
yeah.
they do?
Mhm. Yeah, I've got a couple molds where there's like 4 or 5 different designs on them. And then I just add like I'll use mica powder or glitter, or like sometimes like little like just whatever can actually fit in there, and I'll use like alcohol inks and just kind of like mix and match. And I had done book boxes for like 2 of my Faeven releases, and in the second one I sent out resin daggers to um all the pre-orders, which was like really fun. So now they've got all their little stabbies, and they're like so pretty. But,
Cool. And this is my favorite question of the whole interview. Who are some authors or books that you would recommend?
okay. So I would recommend if you like fantasy, because I'm a little bit biased, I would recommend Vanessa Rasmussen. She wrote
I just read
the
Until the Stars Fall. I just finished
Hmm?
it. I just finished Until the Stars Fall. It
I love
was
her. She's
made
one of my best friends, and I love that book. And I highly recommend all of her books. She's also got like the Aisling C trilogy, which is I think it starts with On These
the
Black Sands
Black
is the
Panther.
first book.
Yep.
I recommend Jenny Hickman, who wrote A Cursed Kiss. I would recommend Alexis Menard, who wrote House of Bane and Blood. I'm just gonna like list off everybody in my author group.
I do.
Um,
That one I just ordered City of Mirth and Malice signed copy
yes,
because I
yes.
this is gonna post so like in the future, but I will have already interviewed her by that point. I have her
Yeah,
coming up for a live interview because I loved that book too.
yes. She's amazing. I'd also recommend Vivi Lacey.
Yes.
Wrote Long Live and Forever Rain. Let's see. I'm trying to like go through my on my list of like all my favorites. Hold on, let me like a look. Um, Obviously Whitney Dean. I love her. And I've got more. I can give you like I could just go like on and on. It was
I
like
know,
really
right?
long.
Well, I feel pretty like happy about that. I've read all those authors, so that's
Oh, and Jacqueline Cott. And
yes,
Nicole Catania. I like her too.
yes,
All of them, all of them, all of them.
yes. I have Curse of Ophelia. I'm waiting. I pre-ordered the second hardback because the art like on the first one is
Yeah,
so
I've got the art on mine too
like,
on my
oh
shelf. I
my
ordered
God,
that.
look
It's
at
so
the
beautiful. I love it.
and then Jacqueline Cott loved those books too. Like, oh, that were so good. I need more.
I love all of them. I love their stories. Full disclosure, I have not read many of them, but I know the authors personally, and we discuss their stories. So I know things. Which is kind of the same thing.
That's kind of funny. And if you had to give advice to a younger you or an aspiring author that's just starting out, what would you say to that person?
Um, I would say I would say to keep my eyes on my own paper, and
Mhm.
not compare and not worry about what everyone else is doing, and just do what feels right for me at the time. And if I was talking to my younger self, I would probably say something like, "You should have done this a little bit sooner," but it's fine. You know, we all have different journeys, live and learn, and all that. So
I like keep your eyes on your own paper because I think it's so hard to compare yourself, like to not compare yourself to other authors.
yeah,
Especially like, I mean, romantasy is like a huge genre now, right? So like everybody writes romantasy. And so, but there's so many different kinds, but if you have two books that like both have Greek mythology, like, okay, like you have a different view of, that retelling and somebody else has a different one. Doesn't mean one is better than the other. It just means they're
yeah.
right.
Yes, exactly. It's um it's very it's very tricky to not let comparison be the thief of joy. So I have to like try my best to stay focused.
And I think Fae is hard. Fae in general, I think are hard just because of Sarah J. Maas.
Well,
That,
and so that's
you know,
and that's very tricky because
and
like a lot of people who have read Constellations, they're like, oh, it's like Akatar meets Bridgerton. I'm like, no, it's not.
right.
And not because and it's not a bad thing, but when you say a book is like Akatar, it gives, there's a very specific vibe with that book, and that is not this book. There's no life or death situations, there's no, heavy world building. There's certain expectations when you give that kind of comparison. And like just because a book has Fane, it doesn't mean it's like Akatar. There's
Oh, you're right.
yeah.
I've
So
actually I never thought about the expectation, but I think that I definitely go into things like that. I'm like, oh, this is like Fourth Wing. I love Fourth Wing, and then I'm like,
yeah,
this is nothing
this
like
is nothing like
what
Fourth
part
Wing.
like it has dragons. Okay, well then that's
Right,
not Fourth
same
Wing.
thing. Like just
There have
because
been
it has
plenty of books
dragons doesn't mean
with
because it gives you
dragons.
that expectation of what you're gonna expect from a story. And like all the chaos of Constellations just is much lighter and like, you know, sparkly. It's not as like
Yeah,
as,
not as
um
savvy.
yeah, it's not stabby. So I think it gives kind of like a false hope and like and I kind of cringe a little bit whenever anyone compares it to a guitar because I'm like, it's not the right vibe.
Mm.
So but yeah, there's only so much I can do. I'm not gonna tell anyone that, but if you were watching, don't know. So,
And
yeah.
it's its own thing and it's wonderful, right? And so you mentioned that you do listen to music mostly without words when you're writing. Anything
Yes.
in particular that you listen to while writing this book?
Um, yeah, so with this one, I listened to oddly enough, I listened to like the Lord of the Rings soundtrack like on repeat. Like that was like my highest listened to like when Apple Music and like
Yeah.
Spotify did it was like the Lord of the Rings. Um, which is it's fine, I guess. But with like book two, um, I've actually I actually just went to like Google and I was like fantasy music, and this whole like 2 to 3 hour playlist popped up on YouTube with just like fantasy inspired music. And so I've been listening to that now, which I like a lot. So I listen to that all the time.
Awesome. And, I know your worlds are obviously fantasy. That's kind of the
Yes.
whole reason that, we're talking about this. But is there any place or worlds or anything that kind of inspired you in these books?
Yes. So Faven is really heavily inspired off of like Ireland and like Celtic lore. Um Aramir for Constellations, that is all made up. I didn't have any particular kind of like place in mind when I wrote it. I just know what I wanted it to look like and how I wanted it to be, and that's what I did. And then for the second Starstorm book, it's a little bit very loosely inspired, like Brackroth, where like Drake is, right? Is very loosely inspired by like Nordic landscape. So like fjords and stuff like that. But yeah, that's
Um,
about it.
and then my last question is, do you have any signings or events coming up that we can see you at?
Yes, I will be at Imaginarium Book Festival in June in DC. I will be at Getting Witchy with It in Salem in September.
Cool.
I'll be at Romantasy BookCon in Orlando in October. And if we're talking next year, I will be, where am I going next year? Next year, there's one I can't tell you about because it hasn't been announced yet. It's in July. It's overseas. Um, but I'll also be at, where else am I going? Well, I was going to Readers Take Denver, but I'm not doing that anymore.
Nobody is because they canceled.
Um, I applied to a few more, so I think I've got like the one on I don't know. I'm gonna have to like look at my list. I know I'm going somewhere. Oh, Villains and Vixens in Dallas.
Ah, cool.
Next September. I will be there. Yeah.
Very
I
cool.
applied to like one or two more earlier in the year for May. So we'll see. But that's it for now.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot coming up, which is really awesome.